Please put your hands together for Mr. Rahul Agarwalla.
Thank you. So good afternoon. We are still at good morning. So I hope you all are awake. I think that last session, Rohit did a great job of sharing, actually your views on AI, right? I'd love to hear more about it. So let's get started with this simple question. I'm hoping everybody knows the answer to this. Which application got to 100 million users the fastest ever? ChatGPT? How many people knew that? Great. So, while that is interesting, let's look at what that means from a business perspective. Sorry, we seem to have gone one ahead. Yeah. So, Chegg, if you know what Chegg is a education company, right? Question and answer. They lost most of their value. 70% of their value gone within 2 months. So ChatGPT launches, their value is gone. NVIDIA, which makes the chips on which ChatGPT is trained, value is up 135%. Means that's close to $1 trillion of value created, and this has happened now. So AI is now. I think that is the key point you must take back. I'm hoping you'll take back from today's session, is that that's not something you can ignore. Rohit's session talked about all the different aspects, where organizations are, what's happening, some of the priorities. But it's actually up to each one of you, right? If you guys don't take up the cudgels now, you all will be left behind. That's my simple point to you. I think these statements, the key point I wanted to make out of these statements is, all the big guys are heavily investing into AI, right? Googles of the world are spending billions of dollars, buying companies, setting up R&D, hiring people, salaries in AI have gone through the roof. And because of all this, the growth in AI is exponential. So, as Rohit rightly said in the survey, ChatGPT is an inflection point. But that's not the only inflection point. There are multiple J-curves which have driven us to ChatGPT, right? Whether you look at research, look at the number of papers, classic J-curve, right? And this is just going to keep going up. Same with model sizes, bigger is better, right? And this is just the public's interest in AI. All this basically tells you that it's not just about where we are today. ChatGPT is a point in time. It was the starting gun for the kind of the AI race, for all of us to realize that AI is real. But it's the starting gun. It's a long race. Please think of this, if you look at it from internet years perspective, this is the Netscape IPO in 1996. The game just started. Right? And it's like a tsunami, right? You see the first ripples in the middle of the sea, few inches. By the time it reaches the coast, 100 feet, right? So that's what's going to happen. Why? Because adoption is wide. It affects every industry. It literally affects every job. And your industry is going to be impacted the most, and I'll come to that. The innovation, because it's so rapid, the growth is exponential, both from adoption perspective and capability perspective. That means more and more things are going to become possible. All the issues you hear about or read about around ChatGPT, generative AI, from hallucination to whether it's bias, all the risks associated with AI, of course they're there, and we'll talk about that. But the point is, this is that baby which has just walked out of the, crawled out of the crib. What is going to happen in 5 years? It's a J-curve, remember. So how is the growth going to go? And machine learning's already always been there, right? I mean, if we can call them insurgents, though none of these guys are insurgents anymore. They've all been using ML and AI for a long time. Various use cases. And from ad targeting, pricing, recommendations, personalization, all of this has been happening. None of this is new. But what is new is now we are finally attacking all the human things. Things we thought was the domain of us humans. To see things, to read things, to hear things. now we can, all those senses AI has got, right? AI can write from stories to poems to getting you recipes. We've all tried some of this in ChatGPT. You can now replicate sounds. It takes 3 seconds of a human voice to be able to replicate it using AI, right? 3 seconds of your voice, and AI can replicate it with about 97% accuracy. It's crazy. This is a massive change in capability. It still has a lot of kinks in it, but all that will go. And as marketers, these are the senses you really care about, right? This is your communication. This is how people perceive the world, and that AI can affect today. And which is why this is a report from McKinsey. $500 billion of impact is what they're talking about in marketing and sales. Highest, amongst the highest across every function, marketing and sales will have the highest impact from generative AI. Why is that so? Because marketing is fundamentally a mix of creative work and analytical work around data, right? So you take that, and those are the strengths of generative AI. Does really well with lots of data and creates new stuff, right? So marketing is going to get impacted. I won't go through this list, but different functions will get impacted faster, slower, all that will happen. Fact remains, your jobs are not going to stay the same. So moving on. This is a lovely example. The reason I love it, this is an incumbent brand, right? Heinz. So somebody at Heinz, a marketer at Heinz, tried out these kind of prompts: ketchup, scuba diving, ketchup in outer space, and all they got back were Heinz bottles, yeah? So then they opened it up to consumers, asked consumers for prompts. And the best prompts all ads were made and put on social media. So here was an incumbent brand, simply because the brand is so strongly associated with the ketchup. All generative AI saw was Heinz when you typed in ketchup. And that became a great viral thing for them to use. So the point I'm making is, for incumbents there, you have certain advantages. Generative AI uses the data as it exists today. Your data dominates. Your content dominates. Use that advantage. But that's not all there is going to be, right? There's going to be lots of new stuff. There's going to be the whole creator economy. That's changing stuff. I'm now going to talk to you about a tool which, this is one of my portfolio companies. So little plug here. So what this does, this is a product called Emo. Emo basically uses emotion AI, and it detects emotion from your facial expressions. So the way you used to run marketing panels in days ago, which is call people to a room, show them a video, ask them whether they liked it or not, ask them a bunch of questions, get their reaction, that consumer panel studies. These guys just make it completely digital. Whatever you want to show your audience arrives on your phone, you open up your camera, you see the thing, and it happens. And they even democratize it further, right? Which is, imagine a creator can send the same video to 5 of his friends before putting it up online and get them to react. Just get them to see it. And Emo will actually detect the emotions. It will detect the emotions through the video, right? When were they attentive? When were they excited? When were they angry? And it will tell you prompts on where you can change it. Was your hook good? Because on social media, the hook matters. On TikTok, the hook matters. So it goes ahead and tells you all of that. The point I'm making is, content creation is no longer just something which is done by experts. Everybody does it. It's going to get easier with generative AI. And that completely changes your perspective, your jobs as marketers. Moving on. Okay, so now I'll come to that portion which I really want to spend more time on, and would love to make this interactive. I'll say a bunch of stuff, but then I would love to hear from all of you, right? I'm trying to help think through what is the, so AI you'll adopt. I'm sure after what you heard from Rohit, what you've been reading, you'll all been thinking about AI. How many of you have been thinking about adopting AI or want to know more about it? Yeah, great. See, everybody's raising the hand. So that's great. So how do you do it, right? So what I'm trying to do is help build some sort of a roadmap by talking about the key challenges, and then we'll make it interactive, do the Q&A, right? So leadership buy-in, very obvious, right? Unless top management buys it, things are not going to go down. It needs that approval. But as Rohit nicely pointed out, it is not just about top management. It's not just the CMO saying, hey, let's do this. See, there's fear in the organization. And that's where the cultural alignment comes in. Because a lot of people think their jobs will go away, right? There is fear. There's resistance to change. And this especially impacts incumbents. Larger organizations have a lot more people who feel their jobs at risk, which makes it much harder for the movement forward. Even if top management buys it, the project dies. The point I'm making to you is, if you let that happen, what you're going to have is only the insurgents winning. Because these technologies fundamentally change the cost structure completely. Just to give you one example, one of my other companies, company called Skid.ai, they automate call centers, right? So today, many of you will be having call centers where customers are calling in and complaining about their products, and that's a lot of people. Especially if you're a large company, you're ICICI Bank. They just removed a whole bunch of people from ICICI Bank because they moved to Skid.ai. So if a computer does that entire job, it's going to change. So some low-level jobs will go away, actually go away. But I don't think the marketing jobs are going away. I think the way Rohit put it, which is the guy who knows how to use AI will take your job away, I would think is 100% true. So my suggestion to you is buy into it today. Upskill. Skills need to change. You need to know what this can do and what it can't. There's a lot of stuff it can't do, right? But a lot of stuff is already happening. And many of its problems will get solved much like we learn, AI will learn. And I just want to talk about that little bit is, we have something called reinforcement learning based on human feedback. The human feedback is critical there. But it's much like your coach, right? You make a mistake, your coach tells you made a mistake. It gets better. So that's that. We have a technique now in AI called reflection. You ask AI to say, why did you say this? Much like we ask other people when we don't understand something or don't agree with it, why do you think so? And it gets better at its answers. The point I'm making is this world will keep on evolving. Please evolve with it. Right? Now coming to the other key pieces on adoption, right? What kind of projects should we take up? So my sincere advice and thought process at least is, and I would love to get feedback as to what you think are real projects in your organizations, what are the challenges you all are facing. But to me, start with the customer journey, right? The customer journey, how do you use AI to make it better, make it more ideal, right? And I'll just give you one simple example to make you see the difference between the real world and the digital world. In the real world, if you go to a restaurant, when you walk in, the person who's going to seat you asks you, table for two for lunch? Yeah. And then they take you to the table. You have your lunch, you leave the restaurant, you come back after 5 minutes. The person there asks you, did you forget something? They don't ask you the same question, how many for lunch, right? In the real world, it's always personalized. Fundamentally, our lives are personalized. Our experiences are personalized. Digital seems to be promising this personalization, which already existed in real life, right? So, but obviously it is possible to do, right? We do it physically. It will happen digitally as well. So that's why start with customer journey is my simple advice. The other key piece on this quick wins versus complex projects, right? When you look at a project, depending on how complex it is, how much data is required, all of those questions will factor into when you will achieve an outcome out of it, right? If you're senior management, I would usually say, go build some quick wins, because then you get the organization behind you. Else the change is much harder to drive unless you have quick wins. But you can't leave the complex projects. You can't leave the data plumbing problem till later. It won't work. You need to work on that parallelly. This is not something which you can just say, I'll do. It's not all linear, right? So think about this scheduling problem better. And because of that, this build versus buy is the other key piece which will determine the speed at which you adopt AI, right? And my suggestion is, if you don't have the skills, go buy it. Don't wait. There's no time. Time is your enemy. Once you make that statement, you know what you have to do, right? Of course, build muscle. Of course, try to hire. But it's like one engineer told me. When I was in IIT, I did not dream of leaving IIT and becoming a developer in a bank. That's not their dreams. You want to hire those guys, you've got to find ways which is beyond, the obvious today. It's not just about money either. There's just so much stuff happening. There's so much creation going on. So find that talent whichever way you can, right? Whether you can insource it from a partner, you can outsource the entire project, does not matter. What matters is you get started on this journey. And this journey is long. The mistakes will happen. That's the other piece on the cultural alignment I'll say is failure is a part of it, right? AI is not perfect, which means results will not always be what you expected them or wanted them to be. They're not as predictable as doing advertising on the Times of India front page. It's not the same, right? But that's the reason you got to learn. The people who learn will be ahead. The people who don't will fall behind. So 2 challenges I just want to bring out, because you hear a lot about them and they are deeper than you think about them. So bias, right? I mean, whether it's racial bias, it's gender bias, it's all kinds of bias, religious bias, which exists in today's data, right? Most large language models or ChatGPT equivalents are being trained on the entire internet. The entire internet, as we know it, is a wild, wild place, right? Nobody sits there and says, this is good content, this is bad content. It's all content. And as far as ChatGPT goes, it's going to consume all of that. And that's what it will learn, right? It learns from data. That's your AI. It learns only from data. Which means if you give it good data, it learns good things. And I'm somehow remembering my mother when I'm saying that, have the right kind of friends, that thought process. And if you don't, then obviously the results are going to be biased. So how do you do that at scale? And especially when you have lots of data, then it becomes a larger problem. But without large amounts of data, it doesn't work any which way. So data is good data is better, right? But even with bad data, you should be able to figure out some of these pieces. You can put guardrails around your AI. What goes into the system should have guardrails. What comes out of the system should have guardrails. That's how you can protect. Other bigger piece and has more regulatory impact is privacy and security. Fundamentally, even today, and I'm sure some of you might have read about these things, ChatGPT is designed not to answer questions like, which are the best sites for pirated content, pirated movies. It won't answer that. But if you ask it, which are the sites to avoid so that I don't see pirated movies, it will give you the exact list, the first question, I'll answer the first question. So please understand, and this is just a simple example. If you're a large company, if you put out something, you're a small company and you put out something that is doing really well, you will be attacked. You're a large company, you will be attacked. And attacking AI is still relatively easy. The problem is that it learns from data. The data, all your prompts. I mean, you would have heard that ChatGPT, when you ask it a question, it learns from your prompt. It learns from any content you put into it. That's also its weakness. So once you open up an AI system and people start putting all kinds of stuff, they can mess up your system. Adversarial attacks will happen. So, as I said, guardrails to check input data and output data and do better testing. See, these are some of the pieces of cost and preparation that have to go into making external facing AI systems. Some of this is less important when you're doing it only for your employees. Right? Keep that in mind. So use cases determine the seriousness of everything. Like, if I'm diagnosing cancer, errors there are very, very critical. Right? But if I am saying that is this review original or not original, even if you make a mistake on that decision, it's not typically critical. So different use cases demand different sorts of accuracy on correctness, all these issues of bias, security, privacy. Every data is not private, yeah? As simple as that. So think through this in a manner for your use case. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, some of the use cases you're struggling with. That's fundamentally it from me, actually, right? I'll just leave you with some of the use cases we've seen are happening and will happen. Happy to chat about this more, but thank you so much. And thank you, MMA. Sure. So I would love to make it interactive. I'm open for questions. Love to hear your thoughts. Any questions, use cases, anything. Yes, ma'am, please. Do we have mics?
Thank you. I'm Vaishali.
Hi, Vaishali.
From NewsX Digital. And I would like to ask, we have talked about many AI-driven solutions in the field of marketing, and that we've been briefed about by Rohit sir and you also. So what are the AI-based solutions, marketing solutions that you are most excited about, that have piqued your interest?
Okay, so see, fundamentally, those 3-4 use cases that I had put up earlier, like, I think today Gen AI allows you to imagine the world you want to imagine and put your audience into it, right? Completely changes. I mean, Avatar, think Avatar. It's CGI suddenly coming available to every marketer, and your ability to create experiences for your things. Little more mundane on the opposite end of the spectrum would be analytics, and thus all the predictive and prescriptive stuff that comes out of it. Like, people talk about A/B testing. I'm sure all of you have heard of A/B testing. A/B testing? Yeah? A/B testing is just 2 variables, right? With AI today, you can do it with hundreds. And you can do multivariate analysis really, really well. And you can change all of that in real time. If you have thousands of users at least coming to your site, you can do thousands of different versions and test all of them simultaneously. Right? So the game has changed. Of course, personalization. Personalization, I already spoke about, very excited about that. Seeing great stuff happening on that. But also don't think it is so powerful because it already exists, is the point I'm making, right? It doesn't change the world really, it changes the digital experience. And of course, the boring stuff actually has great dollar impacts, right? Bottom line and top line impacts come from some of the most boring stuff. Analytics being one of them, optimizing your spends, all of those pieces, very excited about. We look at startups in these areas quite extensively.
Can I ask? Hi.
Sorry, go ahead, ma'am.
Shilpa here. So we've been just hearing about AI, and it started 10 years ago, and we were not really aware. And it's evolving also. I would like to understand that what's your point of view, or what are the challenges that organizations would face as AI evolves further, as per you?
Okay, so the first challenge, of course, is of adoption, right? And I spoke to that, right? That you need to figure out how to adopt it, where to adopt it, and how to go about that entire journey. But also, as AI grows, it becomes more powerful, it takes over more things, people feel a loss of control. The other challenge you need to find is that balancing of control between what you're doing as marketers and what the AI seems to do on its own. And third is just making sure those negative, see, AI is a system that evolves, right? So it is not a one-time job. It's not like your website, you made it and it's done. Once and done doesn't exist, right? Which means you need to continuously monitor it, continuously make sure it keeps doing what you're working as per your objectives, your guidelines. So that to me is a completely different way of looking at tech. See, tech software, when you think of software, you think it's been coded, now it's done, right? It's built. This is not software like that, right? It keeps changing. As you feed it more data, as users interact with it, it changes. So think about those impacts.
Sorry.
Yeah,
My name is Arvind. Hi. I had a question about so this is all very exciting. I think generative AI is going to take a lot of things away and shape up a lot of things in marketing and other areas. But is there a regulatory framework that's been built to deal with the risks or challenges that are probably the best practice for a brand to do? We talked about guardrails, but what kind of guardrails can there be? Should it flow through a particular framework for brands to go to? Anything that on that? Maybe I think that's what's been done here, or maybe globally. I think
absolutely relevant topic, hot topic. Thank you for the great question. So, I mean, as you might know already, in terms of regulation, US typically is the Wild West. Anything goes, and EU is always very, very strict, right? GDPR and all of that. So EU is working on lots of regulation around AI, and you will see something come out probably this year itself. Massive amounts of discussion happening around it, right? Rishi Sunak recently wants to make UK the leader in AI. He wants to do a lot of things around it. Regulation will be a part of that, right? So you'll see a lot of regulation around AI come out, especially in Europe, absolutely. In India, there's talk about it, but I don't think we will see something very, very soon. But I mean, honestly, my view is that we need some level of regulation around it, but not the regulation of the kind you're thinking about, right? You can go ahead and say, I will do responsible AI. Actually, there's a report out by NASSCOM around responsible AI. Yeah, but how will you make sure everybody is responsible? How are you going to catch it? We live in the world, right? Not in India. There's no digitally there are no boundaries. You can't, I can go set up my servers in any part of the world, and most of your servers will be outside this country. How are you going to say that this impacts Indian regulation? How will you catch? So it becomes much harder to just say, go build regulation of X kind, and it will change the world. It won't. People will go do what they want to do. You can't get North Korea not to build its nuclear bomb. You can go make the rules. So regulation is just that. Yeah, Amit.
Hello? Yep. So at the same Sam Altman talk, they had the secretary of MITI over there. That's Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. And very clearly, Altman's invitation to the entire audience and the government was to regulate. Because according to him, AI is a genie out of a bottle. And if you don't really get in and shake hands with the genie, it can go in different directions, which could be quite harmful for the industry and the country. So what the secretary had to say, and I'm just quoting him, this is not my gyan, is that they are looking forward to now joint venturing with the industry to very quickly come across with a framework and a draft code in terms of some sort of regulation. They see the power of it, both good and bad, and we can expect something towards the later part of the year, is what the government has to say.
No, so definitely regulation will come and some regulation is necessary. Question is we don't want over-regulation. I mean, sometimes EU goes a little beyond what you'd want it to do. I think the balance is somewhere between what the US does and what the EU does. And as long as India hews that line, we'll do really well.
I just wanted to add a comment on that. If somebody's not seen the Sant Altman discussion, you should. He was pleading to the government actually, you need regulation. Please give regulation on AI. But in the meantime, it is about governance. I think self-responsibility and governance within the organization till the time the regulations come. I think that's also very important.
No, I think that's the better way to do it, right? Think about what you want. See, as marketers, you've always been responsible, right? I mean, with your brands, with the messaging you do, all of those pieces. That remains true whether you use AI or you don't use AI. Your brand doesn't suddenly go ahead and disappear because you're now using AI. So you need to be consistent as you've been. That, I think, is absolutely necessary. And because of that, you need governance from data, looking at the outcomes, looking at the inputs you're putting in, all of that. But I'm just going to react to your Sam Altman's plea piece, right? Sometimes people make those kind of pleas because they have different agendas than protecting you. So do not just take it at face value is my suggestion. I'm not making aspersions here. All I'm saying is, if Sam Altman is saying regulate, he may have his own reasons for saying it.
So Rahul, that's an off-stage presentation. You'll continue with the audience. It's very, very juicy to understand that. Thank you.
Hi, Rahul. This is Anjul. I just wanted to understand in the world of large models where there's a lot of data being used to train, what are your thoughts on taking the user's consent over which these data is being used to train and create an output?
It's a great question. I mean, I'd love to say, take his consent, be nice, be the nice guy. Your data you've already given away. Most users have already given away their data. What do you do in that world? I mean, the point I'm making is not about what's right and wrong. No, let's be real. Let's dhanda karna na apne ko sab. We are all running businesses. We are not here doing, just being right? So the point I'm making to you is there's certain amounts of data which has already gone out and you can't get it back. You can't get back the control. The genie is out of the bottle. All I'm saying is, if you look at data which hasn't gone out, so for example, medical data, absolutely you must take consent. So depending on the data, the consent importance changes. Consumers today are putting out all kinds of information about themselves. It's scary. I mean, I had an AI company walk in and give me a demo where the guy starts the demo like this, right? He doesn't even introduce himself. He just walks into the room. I'm sitting there. He says, "Sir, can I have your phone number?" I'm like, okay. I give him my phone number. He types it into his computer, and then he turns it around. And there's a whole host of shit about me, all put together. And he can tell me things which I didn't know about myself. So it is scary, amount of data which has already gone out. So let's not, can't bolt the stable after the horse is left, right? At the same time, data which hasn't is not like that. Be careful. Be exceedingly careful with that. Somebody was raising the hand.
Rahul, since you're an investor and it's all about ROI, the best ROI this audience can get is if you can point us to a couple of your portfolio companies who you believe can help our marketing efforts.
Sure.
What is your advice to us?
Sure. I'll send that out any which way, but some of them I put up, one of them, Emo, the Skit, which is doing call centers for a lot of large ICICI Bank, Axis Bank, Tata Sky. Then we have, and so of course for anybody else who's looking for call centers, Then I have Flowworks, which is into the CRM space, where think of it as today, salespeople have on their resumes the software they know. JDs have, do you know Salesforce? Doesn't make any sense. You hire a sales guy because he can sell. Then you ask him, do you know Salesforce? And if you don't, please don't come here. You might be the best sales guy. Makes no sense in that world, right? So we've basically turned around the tail is wagging the dog, seems to me, right? And actually, one other question. How many of us know how to type? Everybody does, right? Phone, computer, you're typing all the time. It's us adapting to the computers, right? We have learned to type to talk to computers. The company I'm talking about is the one which helps computers adapt to us. You basically just tell, I went to this event, I met Rahul Agarwalla, who runs SenseAI Ventures, and I would like to send him an email asking him for that introduction to the founder of Skid.ai. And it will do all of this for you. You don't need to know how to enter into CRM a new entry where first, you don't have boxes like first name, second name, company name. Why do you need that? When I told you that, you got it, right? What was first name, second name? Why can't a computer? So fundamentally, you'll see all that also change. Lots of operational changes happening.